I got kicked out of the very house I had been paying off for 30 years on the exact day I turned 75, and it was not by some stranger. It was by my own son, the boy I raised into a man, and the daughter-in-law who once called me Mama when she first joined the family. They did not scream in my face. They did not drag me out into the street in some fit of rage. No, they did it with a signed deed, a sweet little lie, and a cold, steel-eyed stare as they told me, "This is no longer your home." I stood on the front porch in my slippers, clutching an old brown suitcase. It was drizzling. Through the glass of the dining room window, I could still see them sitting at the table, eating birthday cake, without me. I stayed silent for far too long, but today I am going to tell the whole story. Not for revenge, but so that anyone like me, a mother, a grandmother, a woman who gave up her whole life for others, will understand that we deserve more than this. And before I begin, if you are listening to me right now, please leave a comment saying, "I am listening, and I believe the worth of our elders is never zero." And do not forget to hit that subscribe button, because I still have many stories left to tell. My name is Lorraine Walker. I am 75 years old, and I used to be a baker at a little shop in the southern part of Atlanta. I spent my whole life raising my son, Daniel, after my husband, Harold, passed away from a stroke. We never had much, but I made sure Daniel never went without. I even sold my wedding ring to help him and his wife with the down payment on this house, the very same house I moved into after my granddaughter, Lily, was born. I thought that if I gave my all, if I loved them with everything I had, I would always have a warm place in their hearts. But I was wrong. The love I poured into this family did not disappear all at once. It was worn down slowly, like a candle burning away in a cold, empty room. It all started with the little things, the kind of things that if you told someone, they would say you were being too sensitive. But I knew, abandonment never happens in just one day. It seeps in, like water leaking from a roof, slow and cold. That day, I made Lily's favorite corn cake. She used to say, "Grandma, your baking smells like happiness." But that day, Emily walked in, scrunched up her nose and said, "Oh, you are still making those buttery dishes. The doctor said Lily should cut back on sugar." That sentence was soft as a whisper, but it told me everything. I was becoming the problem. From then on, family meals started happening without me. Daniel would come home late. Emily brought her food upstairs, and Lily stared into a screen. I still set the table for 4, but only one seat was ever taken. Mine. I ate alone, with a cold plate and the clinking of my spoon against the bowl echoing every beat of my loneliness. I kept doing laundry for the whole house, until one day I noticed they had brought up a new hamper to the second floor. No one said a word. They simply stopped bringing clothes down. I kept growing mint and tomatoes in the backyard, a little garden I cherished like a collection of memories. But one morning, I saw construction workers pouring cement over it. Daniel said, "We need more space to park the cars." No one asked. No one looked at me. I was no longer a mother. I had become something like a built-in maid. I once contributed $40,000 toward buying this house, money from the savings account Harold and I built together. But Daniel told me, "You should not put your name on it, just let me handle it." And I believed him. Just like I believed that love was the one thing that would never betray me. One afternoon, I saw a young couple with a real estate agent pointing at our house. Daniel said, "They are looking at the neighbor's place," but he avoided my eyes. I knew. I was not blind. Daniel started asking for money more often. First, it was the credit card. Then it was a loan, $20,000 for some company project. I hesitated, and he put his arm around me, kissed my forehead, called me Mama, just like when he was little and asked for more cake. And once again, I nodded. That same foolish, familiar nod mothers give when they love too much. A few weeks later, I noticed I was no longer receiving account statements. When I asked, Daniel said, "They are sent to my email now. Do not worry, Mom." But I did worry. And one night, I sneaked onto the laptop. There it was, an email confirmation for a hotel reservation in Florida. The reservation was under Daniel Walker, paid with a credit card under my name. I asked him. He said it was a mistake. Emily came home with a designer handbag, said it was a gift from a client. I gave her a faint smile. My eyes may be weak, but my heart is still sharp enough. One early morning, I came down to the kitchen and saw Daniel, Emily, and a strange man looking through a thick folder of documents. When I walked in, they quickly closed it and looked at me like I was intruding. Daniel gave a nervous chuckle. "You are up early, Mum." The next day, the house locks were changed. Daniel told me, "It is a new requirement in the neighborhood for safety. Just call me whenever you want to come in." I stood in front of the door that used to be my home and had to knock to be allowed inside. That was no longer a home. That was a nightmare dressed in sweet voices and fake smiles. I started writing in a journal every night, not out of bitterness, but to hold on to what they were slowly stripping away from me, the right to exist as a human being. One day I asked Daniel, "If I died tomorrow, what would you remember about me?" He did not even pause. He just shrugged and said, "You worry too much, Mom. Let us handle everything." But I understood clearly. Let us handle everything meant stop interfering, just grow old quietly, fade away, inside the very house that I helped build with my own hands. I will never forget that morning. It was drizzling outside. I had just taken the blankets out to dry when Daniel walked into the kitchen holding a cup of coffee. He did not look at me. Emily followed, carrying a thick stack of documents, which she laid on the table like a sentence being passed down. "Mom, we need to talk," she said. I sat down. Emily looked up, her eyes dry and distant. "We've decided to sell the house." I thought I had misheard her. "Sell the house?" I repeated, as if giving my heart a few more seconds to catch up with what my ears just heard. Daniel took a seat across from me, speaking with the same casual tone you'd use to talk about buying a new grill. "We have an investment opportunity. This place is getting old, needs a lot of repairs, and it feels a bit cramped." I looked around. Since when was a house supposed to be roomy like a hotel? This was the place where I first held Lily in my arms, where I squeezed fresh orange juice for Emily during her morning sickness, where I planted lavender beside the window frame Harold once installed. I clenched the edge of my sweater. "And what about me?" Emily glanced at Daniel. He cleared his throat like he was trying to brace himself. "Mom, you've lived with us for quite a while, but now we think it's time for you to find a place that suits you better, somewhere quieter, a place with proper care." I went silent. I understood. They were dressing up their rejection in nice words. No shouting, no door slamming. But it hurt just the same. I asked, my voice strangely calm, "So, where do you want me to go?" Emily pulled out a colored brochure from the folder. I looked into a few nursing homes nearby. Some even have private rooms. Clean, well-staffed. There are doctors, people to talk to. I looked at the photo on the flyer. Elderly people smiling brightly, but I could see the loneliness hiding behind their cheerful eyes. Daniel leaned on the table and sighed. "Mom, this is not what we wanted, but with my job, Lily's schooling, the financial pressure, you understand, right?" I still did not speak. I just stared at my rain-soaked slippers, and that is when it hit me. I had truly been pushed out of this home. "When?" I asked, though deep down I already knew. "Someone's coming to view the house this weekend," Emily answered quickly. "It would be best if you could move out before Saturday. I have already contacted a few places. One of them can take you right away if we pay the deposit today." I stood up. My heart felt empty, not because they were kicking me out, but because I had allowed myself to become this disposable. I walked back to my room, closed the door. and broke down like a child with no home to return to. On Saturday, just as they had said, a young couple came to see the house. Emily wore a long dress with a ribbon tied at the waist, speaking sweetly like a professional realtor. Daniel gave the tour, pointing out every room, including mine. I sat on the bed. My suitcase was packed and resting by my feet. I did not want them to see my tears. But I no longer had the strength to fake a smile either. There was no apology, not a single look of guilt. It was just a property transaction like any other, except this time, the asset being calculated was a human being. That afternoon, Emily handed me an envelope. "This is the deposit we made for the nursing home," she said, not meeting my eyes. I did not take it. I simply placed it back on the table and gave her a faint smile. "I do not need your money. I need your gratitude." But I guess that costs too much in this family. I turned away, picked up my suitcase, and walked out the door. It was not raining, but I still felt cold. Cold from the inside out. I heard the door close behind me, the sound of someone being discarded. I did not look back. After living 75 years, I have learned this. Some losses do not need to be screamed out loud, because their silence hurts even more. That evening, I took a bus out of that neighborhood. One hand held my suitcase, the other held a cloth bag with a few personal items. No one came to see me off. No one stood at the door. They did not have to. They had already done exactly what they planned to do. I thought I would feel rage, but no. What lingered the most was a suffocating emptiness. Sitting by the bus window, I watched houses pass by like a reel of old film. Some looked like dreams once, but those dreams had turned into cold, formal contracts. They did not have to tear the place down. They just closed the door and changed the locks. On my way to stay with an old friend, Charlotte, I got a message from Emily. "Please keep in touch with Lily. She still needs her grandmother." I stared at the message, then set the phone down. For the first time in my life, I no longer felt obligated to reply. A few days later, I heard the house had officially been listed for sale. Someone from the neighborhood told me the price had nearly doubled because of great location, close to schools, and previously well cared for. I laughed. They were not lying. I was the one who previously cared for it. The one who gardened, mopped, cooked, babysat, paid toward the mortgage. The last person to walk out of that home, and the only one who is not welcome back. A few nights later, when Charlotte had gone to bed, I sat out on the porch, looking at the tiny dots of light blinking in the distance. I thought about Harold. If he were still alive, maybe none of this would have happened. I whispered into the darkness, "I am sorry, Harold. I let our child learn how to mistreat his own mother." No answer came, only the sound of wind rustling through the trees. But inside me, something had begun to stir. It was not anger. It was not hatred. It was a sudden, absolute clarity. I could not turn back time, but I could make sure this never happened again. Not to me. Not to anyone like me, because I understood more than anyone. Sometimes, in order to survive, you have to stop being the nice one in the eyes of people who use you. There were nights I lay awake in bed, unable to sleep, unable to cry, barely able to breathe. I would just stare at the ceiling and remember. I remembered the little kitchen from long ago, where I sat Daniel on a chair to teach him how to beat eggs. I remembered the time he got bullied at school, and I secretly tucked a note into his lunchbox that said, "Mom loves you." I remembered the night Harold passed, and Daniel hugged me tightly and said, "Do not be sad, Mom. I will take care of you for Dad." I believed every word of that, and now I found myself wondering, did he ever truly mean it? I remembered even the tiniest things, the handkerchief Harold always kept in his pocket, the scent of the soap he liked, the tune he used to whistle every Sunday morning. Those memories stayed with me. But the place I once called home was gone. I thought about Emily, about the way she once rested her head on my shoulder after giving birth to Lily, her tears falling as she whispered fears about the pain and about being a bad mother. I had held her hand and said, "No one is born knowing how to be a mother, but if you love enough, you will learn." I had loved them. I believed that the love I gave would be returned. But in the end, I only learned one thing. Some people will use your kindness until there is nothing left to take. Living with Charlotte, I did not have to do anything. She always said, "Just rest, Lorraine. You have done more than enough." But maybe because I was so used to always having something to do, I felt empty when no one needed me. But in that stillness, I started to see myself more clearly. I realized I had turned love into a kind of quiet surrender. I thought sacrifice was just a part of life. That I could be ignored, overlooked, as long as the people I loved had everything they needed. I realized I had been so afraid of being alone that I had accepted being invisible. I used to think I had nothing, but I still had one thing that mattered: dignity. And for the first time in years, I knew it was worth more than everything else. I stepped out onto Charlotte's porch, looked up at the night sky. The breeze was cool, carrying the smell of dry leaves. I held Harold's old handkerchief in my hands. My heart was no longer tangled. It was quiet. I spoke softly to myself, but it was as if I was speaking to every woman who had ever felt what I felt. We were not born to be forgotten. No one has the right to erase us from our own lives. In that very moment, I knew I would not wait anymore. I would not cry in silence. I would act, but not with rage, with clarity, with wisdom, and with the self-respect I had once given away. It started with a simple phone call. Charlotte gave me the number of a woman named Nora Blake, a retired attorney who specialized in helping older adults deal with family and property issues. She used to work for the State Court of Georgia and now volunteered at the community center every week, offering free legal advice. I met Nora on a drizzly afternoon at a quiet cafe. She was tall, with salt and pepper hair, black-rimmed glasses, and sharp but warm eyes. When I told her my story, she never interrupted, never rushed. She just took notes quietly. And when I finished, she looked me in the eyes and said, "You are not alone, Lorraine. You are not crazy. And you are not wrong." I broke down in tears, the kind of tears I had never let myself cry through all those months of being erased from my own life. Nora helped me review all my financial history. We sat side by side, staring at my old laptop, and in just 15 minutes, she pointed out dozens of suspicious transactions. Flights, luxury hotels, electronics, dental bills, and business consulting transfers, all charged to cards in my name. I felt both shaken and awakened. "You have the legal right to stop this," Nora said, "but you have to act fast." The week that followed was full of action. Nora helped me transfer all my personal assets into a new individual account, freeze credit cards, change bank passwords, and revoke every access Daniel had ever been given. She introduced me to an independent financial advisor who called me Madame Lorraine in every video call and never made a move without asking my opinion first. I felt alive again. I told no one, no warning, no angry texts. I simply acted. Quietly, decisively, because I knew someone who had been locked out of their own home never asks permission to walk back in. 2 weeks later, Daniel called me, for the first time since I had left. "Mom, my card is frozen, and I cannot log into the company account. Is something going on?" I kept my voice light, almost casual. "I think, you should ask the person you trust the most." He went silent. The next day, Emily emailed me with the subject line, "Can we talk?" I did not reply, because from now on, if they wanted to talk, they would have to do something they never really did before. Listen. I walked forward, one small step at a time. No noise, no drama, but each step brought me closer to myself. To the woman they once saw as weak, passive, and forgettable, I used to be that way. But not anymore. Because once you realize you deserve better, no one, not even your own child, has the right to treat you like a shadow. I still remember that feeling, clear as day. The feeling of no longer being passive, of no longer waiting to see how your children will treat you. Of no longer enduring just because you are too old to do anything about it. I could do plenty, and I had started. 1 week later, I quietly submitted a petition to review the ownership documents of the house I had contributed $40,000 to. With Nora's help, I attached financial statements showing the exact transfers from the retirement account I shared with Harold into Daniel's joint account right at the time of purchase. My name was not on the deed, but the financial proof was undeniable. You can request reimbursement for your share of the property's value, Nora said, and I think you should. I hesitated, but then I remembered the moment I was locked out of my home, suitcase in hand, and I nodded. This time I nodded for me. In the meantime, I did one more thing, small but meaningful. I wrote a handwritten letter to Lily. No blame, no accusations, just a gentle message from my heart. If one day you feel lost in the very home you live in, remember, there was once a grandmother who believed you were good, brave, and kind enough to choose a different path. I sent it through Charlotte, asking her to deliver it by hand. I did not know if Emily would let Lily read it, but I believed what is written from the heart will always find its way, eventually. 2 weeks later, Daniel and Emily showed up at my door. This time, they came, unannounced, but I was ready. I sat calmly in Charlotte's living room. Daniel spoke first. "Mom, is it true? You are suing over the house and transferring assets. Are you doing all this against me?" I looked up at my son, not with anger, just quietly. "No, I am not doing this against you. I am protecting the part of myself I once lost." Emily looked at me, more uneasy than I had ever seen her, and in that moment I realized strength is not about who raises their voice. Strength is being able to act without explanation, because your actions carry a weight that cannot be denied. "Mom, if you go through with this, the whole family will be affected. Our reputation, our finances, even Daniel's job. Is that really what you want?" I set the folder of documents gently down on the table and replied softly, "No, I do not want to hurt anyone, but I will no longer let anyone take advantage of me ever again." Silence fell. Daniel looked down. Emily pressed her lips together, hands clenched tightly in her lap. I looked at them, two people who once had everything, who once pushed me out the door, and now they sat here, uncertain, fearful, unsure of what would come next. And that was the beginning of the end. I did not need to scream. I did not need revenge. I only needed to rise, step out of the role of victim, and return to being the one who writes the next chapter of my own life. I did not have to lift a finger. The law, time, and their own greed did the work for me. 3 weeks after that final conversation, I received an email from Nora. "Lorraine, I think you should watch the local news this morning." I turned on the TV. Channel WNBR9 was reporting, "A tech company in Atlanta is under investigation for financial fraud. CEO Daniel Walker is suspected of using a relative's identity to secure illegal business loans." My heart clenched. I did not feel joy. I did not feel sorrow. I just sat there, quiet. Emily called me that afternoon. For the first time in months, she cried on the phone. Gone was the cold voice. Gone were the subtle jabs meant for someone forgetful. "Mom, we were wrong. I never thought things would get this bad. I'm begging you. Could you just tell your lawyer that it was all a misunderstanding? Just say that." And I clenched my hand. Not out of anger, but because even though I had grown stronger, I still had the heart of a mother. I asked her, "Emily, if this had not happened, would you have called me at all?" Silence. "If I had not revoked access, would you and Daniel have kept borrowing in my name?" Still silence. "If I had not walked out that day, would either of you have changed how you treated me?" There was only broken sobbing on the other end. "Mom, do whatever you want, but please do not let Lily know. She still believes we are a good family." I looked out the window, where the sunset was painting the sky in golden stillness. "It is because of Lily that I have not done more, but I will not withdraw the claim, because I need to make this clear. When adults do wrong, they must take responsibility." Emily began to cry louder, but this time I did not shake. I did not waver. I was no longer the shadow of an aging mother. I was the witness to everything, and this time I would not stay silent. In the end, Daniel's company was forced to repay the illegal loan. He was fined but not criminally charged because I declined to pursue elder financial abuse. But the cost he paid was the loss of his reputation, his position in the company, and, most of all, the trust he once had. Lily began asking questions. "Grandma, did Mom and Dad do something bad?" I did not lie. I just held her and said, "Everyone can make mistakes, sweetheart, but the brave ones are those who say sorry and try to do better." She nodded. Those wide, honest eyes of hers were the reason I still chose compassion. Emily sent back the old house key without a note, and Daniel no longer called me Mama, but I understood. His silence was his acknowledgement of everything I had done. I did not rejoice in their pain. I just felt relief, because after all this time, I was no longer the only one carrying the weight of that home. That night, I sat alone in an old rocking chair, the only thing I brought with me when I left that house. Charlotte placed it by the window so I could look out into her little garden, where she had replanted lavender and mint, just like the patch I once tended. The scent calmed me, but my heart still beat fast from everything unfolding. They thought I would not dare. They once believed that a 75-year-old woman with shaky hands and tired legs could do nothing but cook and babysit. But they forgot. An awakened mother is far more dangerous than a hurt one. The next morning, my attorney filed a motion for asset protection, citing Georgia's elder financial abuse law. No one expected me to have proof, but I had kept everything. Every transaction, every email, every vague promise, including receipts and screenshots. Daniel was flagged by the bank as high risk and was temporarily forced out of the company board. Emily received a letter from the IRS about suspicious charges from a card in my name. I did not celebrate, but I did not forgive. Not yet. Reporters began digging. One local news outlet published a headline, "75-year-old mother stands against CEO son in shocking financial fraud case." Lily saw the article and asked me, "Grandma, are you sad?" I ran my hand through her hair and replied softly, "I am sad. But the saddest thing is when someone you love thinks you know nothing at all." Then I held her close, because that was the one thing I refused to lose, a true connection with an innocent soul. A week later, Daniel, after so many years, sent me a handwritten letter. Not an email, not a message, a real letter in his own handwriting. "Mom, I was wrong. Not just because what you did caused me problems, but because I now understand what you saw, what you felt, and how long you stayed silent. If there is still a chance, I want to make things right. I am not asking for forgiveness, just that you live the life you truly deserve." I read it 3 times. I did not know how much of it was sincere, how much was fear. But at least, I was no longer someone they thought they could walk over. As for Emily, she wrote nothing. But one day, Lily brought me a small wooden box. Inside was the old family photo I once kept on the living room wall, which had been replaced by some cold, abstract painting. Lily said, "Mom did not say anything, but I saw her cry when she put this picture in the box." I said nothing. I just looked at the photo. Harold smiling warmly, me beside him, holding a young Daniel, and Emily carrying baby Lily in her arms. That photo, though aged and faded, was the only thing left untouched in a family that had changed completely. I once believed my ending would be in the corner of a house filled with laughter, with the smell of baked goods in the morning, and Lily calling, "Grandma!" But it was not. The ending, or rather the new beginning, happened in a smaller, quieter home, but one where I was in control. No one pushed me away from the dinner table. No one grabbed the remote and said, "You wouldn't understand this." No one changed the locks without telling me. And no one booked a vacation using my credit card, pretending they forgot my birthday. I lost a family, or more accurately, I lost the illusion of a family, but I found myself again. I started attending evening calligraphy classes at the local senior center. I began rewriting pages of my journal into a small book, not for anyone else to read, but so I would never forget how much I had endured and how far I had come. And Lily, she still visits every Sunday, not because anyone tells her to, but because she wants to. She helps me plant new pots of mint. Every time she picks a leaf, she smiles and says, "Grandma, your happy smell is still here." I do not know if I have fully forgiven Daniel and Emily. Maybe I have not. Maybe I never will. But I have learned to let go of resentment the way one sets down a suitcase that has grown too heavy after a long journey. I no longer need to carry it, because something far more valuable is waiting ahead. Now, I do not live waiting for pity. I live to prove that a mother, even when forgotten, pushed aside and treated like a burden, can rise, move forward, and write the ending of her life with peace and dignity. I am no longer a shadow in that house. I am a small light, just enough to shine on the path I now walk, even if it is late. What would you do if one day you realized that the people you loved the most were the ones who saw you as a burden? Would you stay silent or speak up? Would you endure or walk away and find yourself again? I chose to walk away, not because I was weak, but because I understood. If I do not respect myself, no one else will do it for me. I am not telling this story to receive pity. I am telling it for those who have been deceived, belittled, or pushed out of their own lives to know you are not alone and you can begin again, whether you are 75 or 85 years old. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment. I deserve to live with love and respect. Write it as a promise to yourself. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video with them. Do not let another mother silently suffer in her own home. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel to help me share stories that touch the heart. Because sometimes a single story is all it takes to save a soul that is quietly breaking.